Many normal people do not struggle with or have even heard of or encountered the phenomenon of learning disabilities, and often view those that do struggle with it as lazy and uncaring, or both. That general view is, however, far from the truth. A person can have a slothful trait, but it never automatically means that they are lazy and indifferent. Typically, those with learning disabilities are, in fact, the very example of inspiration, not lazy and uncaring. In attempting to assign an explanation for a learning disability, LD Online agrees with the National Center for Learning Disabilities that one definition for a learning disability is a neurological disorder or problem that can impede someone's academic and social life, whether trying to reach specific goals or just in everyday attainments. Although, stated in yet another definition from the Learning Disabilities Association of America, is such conditions as perceptual disabilities, brain injury, minimal brain dysfunction, dyslexia, and developmental aphasia. It excludes physical difficulties that impair the learning process. However, a physical disability can often be accompanied by a learning disorder. Also, while some physical disabilities can be fixed, or rather recovered from, learning disabilities are a lifelong malady, as some might say. They cannot be cured, they cannot be outgrown. Unlike physical disabilities, visual impairments, or hearing deficits, learning disorders are not so apparent. Because of the obscurity of learning disorders, they are often hidden to others, including parents and even sometimes to the actual person, as being a learning disorder. Too often the individual and others around them, including friends, believe that something is wrong with the individual as a person, or that they are stupid, slow, or broken. Also, learning disorders can be very hard to detect and diagnose because symptoms can vary. A learning disability is a real disability, no matter how unapparent each one may appear. They have real detrimental effects and can create problems, small or large, especially if not addressed early on. Florida TechNet's Facts and Statistics on Learning Disabilities and Literacy describes a learning disorder as a neurological disorder that affects the brain's ability to receive, process, store, express, and respond to information. And just like me, many people not only have to figure out how to make up for their difference, whether they are born with it or acquired it, they also have to figure out exactly where the problem is originating from. In other words, they have to discover a method of learning, or what some call a cognitive style, that is different from the method most people learn and are taught through. Consequently, different learning styles can be a direct reason a child or adult might be diagnosed as learning disabled. In other words, many children do not necessarily have a learning problem, so much as they just learn differently. For example, the well-known phenomenon of dyslexia, where, as Martha Denkla and Rita Rudel explain, a student has trouble with required rapid, repetitive naming of objects, letters, and numbers. When it comes to learning, each person may be different, but thanks to Howard Gardner, we now have an idea about a few varied ways of how people uniquely process information. Gardner originally theorized and created a detailed list of 7 different learning styles around 1980 and are a part of his multiple intelligence theory. Ironically, Howard Gardner, who has won numerous awards, written many highly acclaimed books, and contributed remarkably to society and education, was born cross-eyed, myopic, colorblind, and unable to recognize faces. According to Cast Canada Online, Gardner's 7 learning styles are each different in their expressions, and likewise need different attention and teaching accommodations. It lists the 7 learning styles as linguistic, logical, mathematical, visual, body kinesthetics, musical, and the 2 different ways of applying the styles as interpersonal and intrapersonal. Casa Canada Online describes a child with Howard Gardner's linguistic learning style as one who is more language-oriented and needs to read and write more than children with other learning styles. The logical, mathematical-oriented child, however, enjoys working with and comprehends numbers and concepts more than other children, whereas a child with visual learning style needs a teaching method more geared toward the use of pictures and images and stories. The children of bodily kinesthetics learning style are the ones that are typically labeled as troublemakers, disciplinary problems, and punished more harshly. Those children need to be able to move around, touch, and be involved with what's going on in order to best learn. Yet they are the ones set aside from the activities more often in order to be disciplined. Finally, there's the learning style musical. With this learning style, the individual needs the use of rhythm, melody, and pattern to ideally learn. The last two styles, interpersonal and intrapersonal, are ways in which children study and apply the lessons. Interpersonal is where the individual needs the interaction of other people to best send what is taught into his or her memory, whereas the intrapersonal learner is where the child needs just the opposite and best learns and studies alone. However, the theory is not quite complete, and Gardner suggests the possibility of other intelligences, including, but not limited to, the naturalist, spiritual, existential, and moral intelligence. Gardner has not officially added to his list of 7 intelligences, however, because of the difficulty of adequately and satisfactorily defining them. Therein, many professionals and peers of his continue to debate Gardner's intelligence model and the addition of other intelligences. In fact, another learning style model that has been proposed is the VAG, or VAGT. However, the VAG, was actually proposed long before Gardner introduced his own model. The VAG was offered in the 1920s by education specialists and psychology professionals such as Fernald, Gillingham, Keller, Orton, Stillman, and Montessori. VAG stands for Visual, Auditory, and Kinesthetics learning styles. Some conclude that the VAG is a simpler way of deducing an individual's learning style because it involves more general learning methods and experience. Suggestions have been made, however, to warn people of relying too heavily or solely on the models themselves. The learning style models are meant as an aid to better determine an individual's unique way of absorbing information. The VAC model, for example, can be used in conjunction with Gardner's 7 intelligence model to find ideal tactics in learning and teaching. There are many other learning style models, but even knowing the unique ways a person can digest information does not matter if no one is willing to help a student with a learning disability and using their own style of learning to work through the challenges faced in school. Because they are not visible and obvious to the naked eye, learning disabilities are more often misunderstood than not. Therefore, students diagnosed, and even those undiagnosed, frequently pass under the radar, are bullied and terrorized, are likely to be unfairly mislabeled as a troublemaker, and often are prone to form negative self-perceptions. Unsure parents do not need to wait long to get their child diagnosed and helped, just as much as students struggling with their learning problems have no cause to drop out. Quitting is not the answer, and while the causes for most learning disorders are not known, help in addressing and creating compensatory strategies to deal and cope with the academic issues is available. Although much research has gone into finding the cause of learning disabilities, still, very little is known about how learning disorders surface. Researchers have decided that learning disabilities occur because of the difference in specific brain functionings. But learning disorders have proven to be much more complex than just a neurological disparity. New research has suggested that learning disabilities are due to many different areas of the brain having difficulty communicating that pieces of information. Learning disorders have been found to be caused by one of the three general categories. Despite the prejudice some might hold, having a learning disorder is not the same thing as having a disease, but also due to that fact is a realization that there is no cure. If help is sought, a proper learning style found, and a unique academic plan applied, a child can have a very happy and productive life, just like me, who was tested and able to find my own unique learning style, was able also to find help with my academics as I progressed through college. And I'm not done yet.